63,000 crore deal was signed between the governments of India and France today for 26 Rafale fighters for the Indian Navy. If the Rafale seems familiar, well, you're right. The Rafale is already in Indian service. 36 of them were bought for the Indian Air Force a few years ago. They're already in service. These are naval versions of the same aircraft, which means they are intended to operate off India's aircraft carrier INS Vikrant. Now, these fighter aircraft will begin deliveries only about 5 years from now, but they will sport similar weaponry that many see as game-changing in terms of India's air power capabilities. Very notably, the Rafales began arriving in India a few years after the 2019 Balakot airstrikes and the air battle that followed between India and Pakistan. And most people remember it became a messy affair of claims versus counterclaims with no undisputed victories by either side. So the question now is, have things changed since 2019? And is the Rafale really the game changer that many say it is? Even Prime Minister Modi has decried delays in the Rafale deal thanks to politics played by some opposition parties. Well, if you've got to compare 29 till now, I've got some information that may put this into perspective, and then we'll talk to an expert. There were no Rafales in 2019, like I said. The offensive operations were carried out by Su-30 MKI and Mirage 2000 fighters. Also, the Indian Air Force did not have the kind of long-range stealth cruise missile that the Rafales currently sport. And there were various other shortcomings in terms of shorter radar reach as compared to Pakistan's F-16s. Now, cut to 2025, 6 years later, the Rafale fighters are already fully operational with the Indian Air Force. The Navy is going to get them in a few years. That deal was signed today. Meteor beyond visual range air-to-air missiles more than make up for the kind of shortfall that India faced in 2019. And like I said, the Scalp cruise missiles that come as standard fit on the Rafales are now a very, very formidable, if game-changing weapon. The biggest difference, as you have no doubt guessed, is the weapons and their capabilities. In 2019, Pakistan held their first shot advantage thanks to American weapons like the AMRAAM. In 2025, it is the Indian Air Force that holds that same first shot advantage. In 2019, limited range of air-to-surface weapons, including the bombs that were dropped on Balakot, they had their own limitations, even though they got the job done admirably. But this time, the Scalp cruise missile on the Rafale will be a very different thing to speak of. Force posture finally is important because in 2019, most people believe India was reactive. This time, India has the initiative because of that capability. So these are the 5 questions I'm asking, and then we will go to a veteran to try and get some expert wisdom on that question. Number 1, how did the lack of Rafales limit India's air options after Balakot in 2019? Number 2, would Pakistan dare a 2019-style air battle today with India's Rafales fully operational with the weapons I've just described? Has the Rafale truly erased Pakistan's advantage in 2019? Beyond Rafales, how much has India's indigenous air combat capability grown since 2019? And finally, question number 5, in a future clash, does the Indian Air Force now dictate escalation, or are the gaps still worrying? And we're not even talking about China just yet. Joining me live for an expert view on this tantalizing question is Air Marshal Anil Khosla. He's former Vice Chief of the Air Staff of the Indian Air Force. And even though it was a naval deal that was signed today, it's a similar Rafale fighter jet that the Indian Air Force already operates. Air Marshal Khosla, welcome. Thank you for being with us on this special broadcast. The first question to you is that the word game changer is used extensively when describing the Rafale. Is it a game changer, sir, in the context of what happened in 2019 compared to now?
Shiv, thank you for getting me here. Yes, answer is yes. Considering the enemy and what their capabilities are and what is there in their inventory, having a Rafale at the moment is definitely a game changer. And because of its capabilities, you've already listed all its capabilities and weapon carrying capabilities. What you didn't mention was it's not only the weapons, it is the survivability of the aircraft in terms of its electronic warfare suite, as well as its avionics and electronics, which make it more potent. That is, radar capability, which matches with the ranges of the weapons, air-to-air and air-to-ground, its electronic warfare capability. So it's a complete package which makes the aircraft very, very versatile and makes the change, makes the difference. Yeah, sure.
You know, in 2019, Air Marshal Khosla, the Mirage 2000s that carried out the bombings of Balakot, because of the lack of range of the weapons, they had to fly and take quite a risky measure of flying into enemy airspace over POK in order to release those weapons. With the Rafale now and the Scalp, should a similar kind of situation present itself to India, would it mean that the Rafales would be able to get the job done with far less risk compared to 2019, sir?
Definitely. But before I answer your question, let me tell you, I'm not advocating or saying that India will do it because I'm a retired officer. 6 years back, I retired. Government will take a decision in consultation with the defense forces.
We're not advocating war.
Yeah, and whether military option is to be exercised or not, besides a lot of other multi-dimensional actions which already has been initiated. Having said that, definitely it will make a difference because now with the ranges, which kind of ranges which you're talking about with Scalp and the standoff ranges, air to ground and air to air, the aircraft need not expose itself, need not cross the borders, and it can engage the targets from far away. So obviously the risk factor will be much, much lower as compared to earlier days, 6 years back.
Yeah, okay, so we've spoken about the air-to-ground aspect, Air Marshal Khosla. Now I want to come to the air-to-air aspect. And you are a fighter pilot. You've flown fighters your entire career. You've fired weapons as well. You've trained in that sort of thing. You've trained in aerial combat, including beyond visual range. When enemy fighters and your fighters are flying against each other, can you explain the kind of advantage a missile like the Meteor, which is something that the Rafale has, changes the game in terms of air combat? Because here you are basically very, very far away from the adversary and have something called a first shot advantage. Is that true in this case? And can you explain that, sir?
Yeah, Shiv, very rightly you brought out. Our generation, we have been lucky. We started when we joined Air Force. We were into visual combat with limited, gun sort of environment and Top Gun type of movie, type of engagements. Yeah. Now things have changed totally. Now you don't even see the enemy. It is all, based on the radar. It's a blip. Enemy is a blip, actually. And not only a blip, the radar, the weapons have to match with each other as far as ranges are concerned. Even one is lesser than the other, it causes a little bit of restraint. So with the Rafale type of platform where the radar matches with the standoff weapons, both air-to-air and air-to-ground, it's a big advantage. And also, Shiv, another thing which is happening in this air combat is, it's like a fire and forget sort of a scenario has developed, where the computing power of the aircraft is so much that you designate the target, you assign a weapon to it, and thereafter, the pilots doesn't have to maneuver so much. Of course, he has to maneuver to get into the launch envelope, but not very precise. Once the aircraft reaches the launch envelope, it is automatically the weapons are released and engages the target. So that kind of advantages you have with these sort of aircraft, where you can assign the target, assign the weapon, and continue with some other task which is being undertaken, maybe air defense. And this Rafale being omni role, both the air defense and ground attack role can be carried out simultaneously. Yeah, sure.
Last two questions, Air Marshal Khosla. After the 2019 Balakot bombings and the air battle that followed, we have no doubts what India achieved in Balakot. But, the fog of war, the claims and counterclaims and the mess that, followed what happened over the line of control in the air, left things kind of unsatisfying in terms of undisputed gains and victories, for both sides, certainly for India. Would you say that with a machine like the Rafale, and I do know that it is a warfighter much more than just the machine, but discounting that for just a moment, with the capability that the Rafale brings to the fight, victories and claims would be much less disputed, possibly, sir?
I would say that, Shiv, definitely, because what happens is you rightly said, the fog of war. So fog of war has a lot of elements in it because of ground-based radars. You have AWACS, you have multiple aircraft and packages in the air. You have decoys, you have enemy electronic warfare going on. Then there's the communications involved. I mean, there are multiple factors which clarify your situational awareness, which is the term which is used, or fog of war, that is a lack of situational awareness. But definitely, we have come a long way, and with the machines like Rafale and also networking of our this thing, that will definitely the fog of war would reduce comparatively as earlier days.
One final question, very briefly, Air Marshal Khosla. The elephant in the room, of course, is China. They've been flaunting so-called sixth-generation fighters. I don't want to give too much credence to what they're calling sixth generation, but it is a reminder that India has a long way to go to catch up to, getting to those stealth capabilities that are already in service with China. Is the entry of the Rafale in service a stopgap towards much more work that needs to be done ahead?
Definitely. I mean, this is a welcome step though. That is, in Navy getting the Rafales 26. And makes sense, we are already operating Rafales as a proven aircraft. It is proven in operations in Iraq and Afghanistan and to other places. And it's a good platform. It makes sense to buy the same rather than any other and increasing our inventory. So interoperability between Navy and Air Force will be much better. Maintenance will be better. Supply chain will be better. And as far as China is concerned, definitely China is marching ahead numerically, definitely, because they have well-established defense industry. But quality-wise, there is a question mark. Obviously, like you said, they claim a lot of things, but actually how much capable they are is not known because of the enigma which is associated with China. But definitely we need to give the devil its due and give them the due that, their aircraft and missiles and platforms and weapons are capable, and prepare for the worst case scenario and will be better off. So we need to take cognizance and increase our capability as well as capacity to withstand all the threats which we are facing. Yeah, Shiv.
Air Marshal Khosla, always a pleasure to hear you, and it's always good to get wisdom on a complicated issue from someone who's actually been in that cockpit, and done some war fighting himself. So I thank you for taking the time out and helping us out understand and navigate this story. I'd like to only end by saying that I hope that this Rafale deal will be the last such deal where we import fighters rather than build and make our own. And for those wondering, this Rafale deal has not been signed or triggered because of what's happening in J&K. This was a deal that was in the works for many, many weeks and months now. So I just wanted to bust that doubt because I saw some of that going around on social media.